Hello and welcome everyone to another StarCraft 2 England cast. Today I've got a game, well it's game 1 of a best of 3 actually from the Zotac Cup, and it is between AcerNerchio, who is the red Zerg player in the top right, and EmpireBratOK, who is the yellow Terran in the lower left. Braddock is obviously a very well known player, used to play for Team Imber, now over on Team Empire, so just showing that he's moving up, he's definitely getting better. Nerchio obviously is a very well known player. He's done some great results in bigger tournaments recently, and essentially I'm sure you'll all recognise the name if you do follow StarCraft 2 in the slightest. So the map is of course Shakura's Plateau. This is game 1, and now the argument would be Shakura's Plateau favours Terran a bit, and the reason for that is that the natural base is so easy to take. This ramp really narrow, it's quite nice just to get down and you can defend it very easily. Likewise, so can the Zerg player take their natural relatively easily, but it's this third base that causes the Zerg player so much problems, because you want to expand, spread out as much as possible, but if you look at the distance between these two areas, it's absolutely huge, which means it's very easy to lose this third base quickly, and your only other option is to go somewhere like here, but there's lots of little chokes, and generally you just wouldn't take this base anyway because it's just too easy for a Terran player to move across and cause you a nightmare. As for drops, they're always viable on this map. While there isn't that much dead space, there's enough to get some medevacs through. There's also this low ground here, which you can do some funky things by dropping tanks down and then medevacs onto the high ground. In terms of Nerchio's strategy, essentially I'd imagine he'll go for a pretty standard Ling Bling. I reckon Infestors are the most likely course of action into Broodlords, because there's nothing too funky you can do on this map. There's no... I wouldn't say muters are a great option, they are possible, but this natural base is too well hidden to really be able to do it too well, and the third base, which will go here for the Terran, can be defended very easily. The other thing, of course, is this third base for the Terran is so easy to take, because they can position tanks along this sort of area and defend their natural and third at the same time, which is another reason many Zerg players dislike this map. But Nerchio, he did go for a hatch first build, which is to be expected, and we went for a 1-Rax command center here for Braddock, and of course Braddock is really going to be in a good economical position, and I'm seeing this more and more from Terran players where you go for that 1-Rax CC purely because you know your Zerg opponent is going to be going for a hatch first build. Why not? Because, well, just expand, because they're not going to be able to do anything to you. So basically go on equal bases and then force the Zerg player to either put on pressure, which on this map is going to be a nightmare, or to take a quick third, which again on this map isn't going to be too fun. So what else is going on? Well, we've just got this SCV poking and prodding around. Not going to see too much at the moment. No gas yet for Nerchio, which is to be expected. You may look to start taking those soon. 2 queens on the way, and now Braddock going for a third CC. So this was a barracks command center build. This is as economical as you can go. The 2 gas coming down now probably for reactor Hellions, but Braddock is seriously going for an absolutely dominating economy, and if he holds it, Nerchio is going to have an absolutely horrible time, because even if this command, the most likely thing is this command center will get morphed into an orbital command. It will then just sit here and pump out SCVs and mules, which basically allows Braddock to stay with, if not ahead of Nerchio's economy, and then he can just simply float it down and be happy and take a third whenever he so feels safe, which will probably be about the time siege tanks come out. Now here comes out the first 2 gas here for Nerchio, who has yet to make any attempt to take a third base, which, to be fair, I don't blame him. He needs to be careful because of course Hellions will be on the way shortly. Here comes down the factory already. Once we get up to 50 gas, we'll probably see the reactor. There we go. So reactor Hellions are on the cards. Now, a lot of Terran players are finding reactor Hellions to be a lot less efficient compared to what they used to be, especially in taking out drones after the queen change. Now, my personal opinion is just get a few out just to deny the creep spread and keep the map control. But obviously, if not, I think Terran players are going to have to start moving away from reactor Hellions and looking at different openings, and there are some really effective things that can be done even after the queen change. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. The third base on its way now for Nerchio. I love the fact he's gone for these 2 queens specifically for creep spread. This will allow him to join up these 2 bases, which is absolutely essential if he's going to be able to defend them. Now we do have the Roach one on its way out. Speed is also coming down. No sign of lair yet, but we'll probably see that shortly. So obviously getting the Roaches out is a good kind of part-time solution to it. Any kind of pressure Braddock will put on will be deflected by roaches until sort of the siege tank numbers start getting higher, and then of course roaches become less efficient. Now we do have the double evo chamber coming down as well, suggesting a very upgrade heavy play, and this overlord looking like it's getting ready to sacrifice itself in, but actually surprisingly no reactor hellions coming out here other than these first two. So basically this is just going to be a tiny little bit of reactor hellion just to basically try and prevent creep spread. But I actually really like that. It's getting the tanks out faster. This third base, of course, is there. And if you look, that's allowing Braddock to stay equal on the worker count, which once you factor in the mules, means that basically this is happening. Braddock has got a much better mineral economy. Now the third base is getting a quick transfer of, well, not drones, of zerglings. The drones will probably follow on afterwards. These zerglings are just running around checking for any kind of force there that could just pop down the ramp and deal an awful lot of damage, which of course is something you have to be worried about on this third. Now Braddock, he is getting down an additional 2 barracks. He's getting 1-1 upgrades. The 1-1 upgrades also on the way out for Nerchio, and they are actually surprisingly close in time. So this is going to be a really equal upgrade fight, which means it's going to come down to the economy and who ultimately has more stuff or the better tech. And with regards to tech, at the moment that's in Braddock's favour. He does have those siege tanks coming out, he does have siege mode finished, and of course he's now just getting down a second factory and is really ramping up his production capabilities. When we look at Nerchio's base though, he is getting down the infestation pit, the baning nest, he's getting all the tech he needs. So this is a really nice play. I'd love to see pathogen glands get started really quickly. I love the way the Nerchio is just keeping a small force down by his third to make sure it's defended, because ultimately you can flood from the natural and main to defend here. For the third base, if you do get units come up, you can get problems. Now, we do see here Braddock has taken his third and is now getting the bunkers down, the gas down, and is yet again going to be on equal bases with Nerchio, which is really going to put the pressure on our Zerg player here to try and do something. And this is exactly what this Zergling run by is going to try and do, is he'll probably run those in. I don't know if he can actually see it from that vision. He can definitely, so basically he's now got to try and do some damage, but there's 3 tanks here. This tank on the high ground, absolutely brilliant. This is absolutely perfect placement basically, because this is incredibly difficult for the Zerg player to get to through essentially 2 walls before he can take out this tank. So that means any Zerglings which do come through will probably take huge amounts of damage to that tank. The other thing of course is you can use medevacs to drop tanks up on this high ground here, which of course is very fun. Hive is on its way, so is the Spire, so that means Broodlords are definitely on the course for Nerchio. He's getting down his 4th, he's also getting down the pathogen glands. Stim surprisingly only a quarter done for Braddock at the moment. He was favouring getting that siege tech out a lot quicker. He's getting down the first starport in his production basically now, so that means medevacs aren't on the field. These Zerglings still just poking around, managed to take out 2 Hellions there, but that was the only 2 Hellions on the field. The 4th base for Nerchio about half done here, but if we take a look at the worker count, actually Braddock is ahead by 1 worker, which still means that his economy is just absolutely skyrocketing, about 800 minerals more per minute. And that is really significant. The only thing Braddock has to worry about, of course, though, is the Nerchio. He is getting up that hive tech, he's got the Spire, so that timing absolutely brilliant there by Nerchio. Both finished simultaneously, instantly starting the Greater Spire, so absolutely perfect play, and that means Broodlords are going to be coming out soon. The Infestors are already on their way out. Nerchio has got his 4th base, he's got a good number of drones to support this. If we take a look down here at Braddock's base, he's doing some really interesting positioning with, well, SimCity with these supply depots, just trying to be defensive. He's running these marines up, just seeing if he can spot any overlords or anything to pick off for free. But so far we've got just a big tank marine force. The 2-2 upgrades are on their way. For actually both players, the 2-2 upgrades coming out, and I have to say Braddock is doing some absolutely amazing SimCity. He's got the missile turrets down at his 3rd just to be safe. He's got a great wall of position, and now he's just getting some great scans down to pick off these creep tumors. He doesn't want it coming into his 3rd. And this is some good positioning of the tanks, just in a nice tight choke. Means that any banelings coming in will have bad times, but a stream of Zerglings coming in. The supply depot wall-off is down. The top isn't though, so basically we've got Nerchio trying to come in and deal some damage, but there's an awful lot of marines and tanks there, and that will get shut down really hard. The Greater Spire about to finish up for Nerchio. He does have a couple of corruptors out already, 5 there, so he may just start the Broodlord straight away. He does have the money to do that, but he's still pumping out just a couple more corruptors. Doesn't want to leave himself vulnerable to air, but these tanks are slowly starting to leapfrog over now for Braddock, and that is when Nerchio has to start thinking how he's going to deal with this. But of course, the Broodlord's timing absolutely perfect. It basically means that the Broodlings will get shot over, forcing the tanks to unsiege, or they'll do huge damage to Braddock's army. And now we are looking at a 200 of 200 Terran against a 180 Zerg, which will always favour the Terran player. The Zerg player actually wants to be slightly ahead in terms of supply, but it's all going to come down to how good the Marine splitting is, along with a couple of other things. Now, most of Nerchio's army just right the way back here, and we need to see some good engagements, but in come the Zerglings. The tanks are siege, but a couple of infested Terrans getting locked down. A great little strategy there to force tanks to kill themselves. Works very, very nicely, and so far all of the Broodlords just sitting down here by the third and essentially waiting for Braddock to move forward into them, as opposed to playing it risky. And I think that is a very, very good strategy by Nerchio, who is now just very, very slowly easing forward those broods, trying to get a couple of hits off. The Zerglings are going for it, and if a surround is achieved, then that's going to do huge, huge damage, but Nerchio wisely pulling out. He'll probably utilize this high ground, and if he can pick off those two medevacs and basically take back the watchtower, that is the only way that Braddock could see those Broodlords up on the high ground. So I'm very interested to see if that works. Another Broodlord is morphing in now. The infestor count not too high, only 5 on the field, but obviously fungal growth incredibly potent against marine balls. So many marines can get caught in a fungal growth and they deal so much damage to them. But suddenly we've got this third base looking to be a little bit vulnerable, but Braddock trying to position himself very, very nicely across the top. And this is really quite a stressful moment for both players. They need to know where they can move, where they can basically deal the damage, and what to go on from there. The one thing I am quite surprised in is the 2 additional starports only on their way out now, and that's a bit of a delay because the Vikings need to be able to deal with those Broodlords. Only 2 on the field, and if we take a look, there are already 3 Corruptors, so that's not going to be too bad. There's also 7 more Broodlords morphing, and this is very, very quickly going to become an absolutely crazy force here for Nerchio. The thing he's got to be concerned of, though, is that mass Viking play, so needs to be ready to deal with those, and that's what the infestors are for. The Vikings do clump up an awful lot. If you are able to get a big fungal growth off, you basically win. Now, here we go with the Broodlords, just huge amounts of Broodlings chucked out, and the tanks just demolishing themselves right now. They're killing the Marines. It is never fun times trying to engage this sort of Broodlord force, but these Marines just getting absolutely annihilated both by Broodlords and their own tanks. And now we've got Braddock trying to hold position. He's being brave by not unsieging, to be honest, but quite a few of those medevacs getting taken down by the Corruptors. The Broodlord control absolutely brilliant. Where are the infestors, though? They're nowhere to be seen. And of course, once those tanks unsiege, this is when we should see the Zerglings running, and this is exactly what Nerchio is doing. And the resiege tries to go up, but the Zerglings do get a complete surround, and Braddock's army is going to get completely annihilated right now. And this is not fun times for our Terran buddy. And of course, the only plus side from this is, of course, that all of these bases are on their way down, and basically Braddock is building command centers everywhere, getting planetary fortresses, but he's about to lose his 3rd base, and Nerchio is looking to be in an absolutely beautiful position. Currently, the tank numbers completely down, but there are a lot more Vikings out, and these Broodlords could get taken down pretty quickly when there are just so many, but a huge fungal growth goes down there, so many Marines get taken down, and that chain fungaling hitting an awful lot of Vikings as well. Don't know, there is enough energy for another fungal or 2, but for the moment Nerchio is deciding to pull back. He does go for another big fungal growth, needs to try and get anything he can. The Corruptor's trying to go in there as well, but the Marines focusing them down. Braddock does not want to lose those Vikings. That would be incredibly... well, it'd be a huge loss for him, and he'll probably lose him the game. So the only thing keeping Braddock alive right now is the fact that he does have those Vikings up, and basically Nerchio has invested so much in the Broodlords, he doesn't want to lose them. 13 Corruptors are now out, though, so they're going to probably come and help ASAP. There's only a small ball of Marines. The Thor is there, but doesn't do much damage to either Broodlords or Corruptors, as they are armoured units, as opposed to the light classification of Mutalisks, which Thors absolutely crush. Now, basically, what we need to see here is Nerchio just bide his time. He's got the tech advantage. He does have the economical advantage as far as he's concerned, because I don't think he knows about the 4th and 5th base in the top position here for Braddock. But we do have a mass Zergling run by into the mineral line, and this is just doing so much damage. And of course the Broodlords are there as well, and the SCVs aren't even getting pulled. And if we take a look, actually the worker count kill on both sides is pretty equal, but we do now have huge fungal growths going off. This is absolutely massive. So many corruptors out. The Broodlords are shielded ever so well. Braddock, he's trying to engage, but there's just too many corruptors there, soaking up way too much damage. And suddenly we've got the infestors coming in as well. They're getting some great fungal growths off, even lobbing down some infested Terrans, and Braddock is going to be forced to pull back. The corruptor numbers have dropped significantly, but of course all the Vikings are now dead. There is that planetary fortress playing defensively. Love the use of that, absolutely brilliant. But a lot more Zerglings coming over, a lot more infestors coming over, and of course the Broodlord numbers are still pretty damn high, up at 7, so that's a good place to be. The +1 ship weapons only just coming out for those Vikings now, which, I mean, only half done, that's a bit late. These additional bases, which haven't been scouted by Nerchio, if they were spotted, they'd be really, really easy targets. They're not defended in the slightest, but it looks like Nerchio is assuming they're going to be up there, and he's going to just send those Broodlords up, and that base is going to go down so damn quickly. The only trouble is it could be a little bit vulnerable if there were a lot of Vikings, but luckily there aren't at the moment, and there's just so many Corruptors. And now here we see Nerchio just going to do so much damage. This small little Marine force is going to get taken down, and all the Broodlings on their way down, but mass repairs going down at the moment, which are actually out-repairing the speed of these Broodlings, and the Broodlings, of course, are not smart enough to go and attack the SCVs straight away, so that is a bit of a shame for them. But so far we do just have huge damage coming down everywhere, and it will actually force Nerchio to pull back without taking down that base. I don't know how many SCVs he killed, quite a few there. It does take the SCV count from down to 45 to 70, and huge fungal growth catching all of the Vikings, and that is not fun times at all for Braddock right now. He's got no way to deal with those Broodlords, and effectively he's now got a panic, and this is exactly what this move with the Marines is. It's a panic move, using the fact that they're slightly more mobile to try and deal some damage, but the Queens are there, the Spines are there. There's also an awful lot of Zerglings, and those Zerglings are 3-3. But they are, of course, up against 3-3 Marines as well. Some great chain bungling going down, and that'll kill everything. But Braddock does manage to take down the third base of Nerchio. And Nerchio hasn't actually been expanding behind this as well as I think he should have been, and that will hurt him eventually. But, of course, he's mined out as natural and main, and he's now just lost his third. So he's effectively down to 1 mining base, compared to the 1, 2, 3 mining bases here for Braddock. There is a single Broodlord being so irritating, just killing off mule after mule. Of course, the Broodlings are 3-3 as well. That makes them incredibly effective, and the +1 armor now just finished for air units, but that won't help when you've got that many Marines there. But this will, of course, force a lot of the Marines out of this position and will allow Nerchio to move across. Now, the one thing I'd say Braddock hasn't been utilising as effectively as he could have been is drop play. Would love to have seen some more drops. Now, all of these SCVs are going to go down near instantaneously. That is a big loss there. 55 workers have now been killed, and that takes it 22 to 67, which basically just means Braddock is not going to be able to keep up with Nerchio. I mean, once Nerchio gets this base back down, he's going to be fine. He's also getting up a 5th base, and he's now just got such a good economy. He's got nearly double the supply of Braddock, and he's basically everywhere he wants to be. Things couldn't go much better for him right now. He'd have to actively lose the game, in my opinion. And the one thing Braddock has got, though, is the defender's advantage, which can be useful, but obviously the Viking numbers aren't quite as high as he might like. He's only up to 7 at the moment. We'll take him up to 10. But of course there's 10 Corruptors out, and also there's 10 Infestors. So fungal growths we've seen have already been the nightmare in Braddock's play, and have basically allowed Nerchio to completely crush those big Viking balls. But in the meantime, we do have the +1 air attack coming down. We do have an awful lot of Zerglings coming to try and deal with this big double drop. The Corruptors are there as well, so those medevacs will get taken down, and this drop won't be able to do anything too effectively. Of course, once the medevacs are down, it causes a big problem, but this has forced all of Nerchio's army back, and this Braddock is really very effectively utilising this by trying to try and pick off this 5th. The Infestors are there, and there goes down the fungal growths, and basically this is now going to cause problems. But of course, here comes the Vikings ready to try and deal with those Broodlords. We do have a big force from Braddock moving back, just trying to be defensive, picking off those creep tumors, trying to get the creep to go back so he can retake that base. But Nerchio, he's still just in such a good spot. Now, we do have Seeker Missile and the Corvid Reactor for those Ravens on its way out, which really Ravens are the only way with mass Seeker Missiles to deal with this late game death ball from Zerg. There's just so much stuff. Nerchio has basically got everything he wants. He's been maxed out for ages, and he's got enough money to just resupply on pretty much whatever he wants to. Now, obviously, all these little engagements here where Broodlings take out army units always is so good for Nerchio. Broodlings are, of course, remember, free. They cost nothing, and every time you kill a unit with something that doesn't cost you anything, it just means that you're engaging cost effectively, which obviously means that you can outlast your opponent. But here we go, we've got big engagements and big fungal growth trying to go down on the Vikings. Not chain fungling as much as I would like to see Nerchio here. He's obviously just using his attention elsewhere, but here comes down a couple more fungals, but there's just too many corruptors, and to be honest, I expect to see a GG any second now. I don't see any way for Braddock to be able to deal with this. Yes, he has taken out the 5th base, but Zerglings are on their way back. He's trying to send Marines to absolutely every base. It's great play, but there is the GG from Braddock, and Nerchio takes game 1. So, if you did enjoy this game, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, new top level games up every single day, and leave a cool comment. But most importantly, I hope you did enjoy it, and thank you very much for watching. And flick over to my channel to find game 2. Bye for now.